Thanks for joining. I do want to share with you before we get going, you'll see on your screen here, we have about 70 people on the call, which just a terrific turnout. So it was great that people could take the time. You could see the different members of our organizations, as well as people that we do some business with throughout our time on a regular basis, all people in roles of leadership in one way or another that we wanted to reach out to and get involved with. So thanks for joining us for this purpose. So before I introduce this morning's speaker, I wanted to not only thank you guys for joining us, but remind you to make sure you're muted. And if you would, for the purposes of at least the presentation, to make sure it goes smoothly, stop your video. If you guys could stop your video, that would be great. And that would allow for hopefully a very smooth transition. Eric will speak for 30 minutes this morning, followed by a Q&A. At any time during Eric's speech, you can type your questions into the chat, or during the Q&A, you can ask questions directly to him. So we want to have a good, vibrant chat time period. I met Eric when I was coaching at Michigan State. I had seen him the first time make a great presentation at the annual American Hockey's Coaches Association down in Naples. I'd asked him to come and work with our team, and he did that, did a terrific job for several years, he and his team. They also worked with several other teams on our campus. Eric Kapitulik was born and raised in Thompson, Connecticut, and attended the United States Naval Academy. While there, he was a 4-year varsity letter winner and played on 3 NCAA lacrosse tournament teams. He graduated in 1995 and went on to serve as both a Marine infantry officer and special operations officer with 1st Force Reconnaissance Company, 1st Marine Division. Eric left active duty after 8 years of service and graduated from the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business in 2005. He is also an ultra endurance athlete and an avid high altitude mountaineer. Eric is now the founder and CEO of The Program, a team building and leadership development company that works with corporate teams and leading collegiate and professional athletic organizations around the United States. Before he speaks, we're going to show a brief video about Eric's experiences while serving in special operations.
The Ironman now stretches on for miles, and you could stand on the shoulder of the road and watch all the stories pass by. This is the one being told by Eric Kapitulik, who knows a few good men who are preparing to stand in harm's way. It was a training mission.
As the platoon commander of 5th Platoon, I'm responsible for all my men and the mission at hand. The mission that particular day was preparing for our upcoming deployment to the Persian Gulf. Looking out the side window, I remember thinking to myself that I can usually see the ship come into view relatively slowly. The only thing I remember thinking was, man, it seems like we're going faster than what we usually do. A couple seconds later, I felt the helicopter slam into the side of the ship. You could hear everybody inside pretty much yell, hey, hold on, we're going in. I woke up with the water hitting my face. I was just sort of pulling myself hand over hand through the helicopter, trying to get out of it as it was sinking.
This is not a drill.
7 men didn't make it, including Staff Sergeant David Galloway.
On the news, you hear of this helicopter crashing into the side of the ship, and The knowing that your husband's lost at sea, it was a terrible accident, but the Marine Corps to David was his life.
The accident and my men who died, I think about them every day. My men made me so proud and everything that they did, because they were a reflection of me. You know, there's no way I can ever repay that friendship.
But he'll try. Eric has a series of sponsors and raises money by competing in races like this, so that all the children of those men lost will be able to look forward to college one day. Duty. Honor.
He is an amazing individual. When you've gone through something that has touched your family like it has ours, and just to know that he's doing this for my children is just, it's wonderful.
The only people in this that deserve any of the credit are the widows of my men and the families that they left behind. Just how well they've coped with the loss of their husbands, their fathers, and just what great Americans they are.
For some, there is more riding on what happens in the Ironman than most of us will ever know.
While training for our upcoming deployment to the Persian Gulf, the helicopter that myself and 10 of my Force Reconnaissance Marines, 10 of my teammates, the helicopter that we were riding in, rather than being in a 60-foot hover over the ship that we were practicing taking over, it came in too low and too fast and struck the side of it. When we take ships down, we wear between 50 and 75 pounds of gear, weapons, equipment, and ammunition. We carry M4 carbine long rifles, 45 caliber pistols, shotguns, blowtorches, and demolition gear. And every single one of my teammates and I were wearing a lead bulletproof vest. The helicopter pilot, recognizing his error, pulled on the collective, which would typically give lift to a helicopter. Unfortunately, on that particular day, the back left wheel of the helicopter that my teammates and I were riding in was stuck in this thick metal netting that surrounds most cargo vessels, causing the helicopter to become vertical in the air, invert on itself, and then plunge into the Pacific Ocean. When it did so, my teammates and I, we were all immediately knocked unconscious. And we woke up sometime thereafter in a sinking helicopter, still wearing all of our gear and equipment, with no idea on how to exit from that sinking helicopter, and with no oxygen. So I fought and I pulled myself through the helicopter as it sank, looking for a way to exit from it. And then I started to swim. But only when I started to swim did I feel true fear. Fear that even this morning, so many years later, I still get scared thinking about that moment when I first started to swim. I'm Eric Kapitulik. I'm the founder and CEO of the program. The program is a team building and leadership development company. We have one mission: develop better leaders and create more cohesive teams. That's all we do. We have the opportunity and the privilege to do so with more than 160 collegiate and professional athletic teams and corporations throughout North America annually. Many of those teams will do well. They'll win games, literally or figuratively. Because to do well, we need one characteristic: talent. Talent allows us to do well. It allows us to win games. What I'd like to share with you this morning, however, has nothing to do with talent or doing well. What I'd like to share with you this morning is how we get that much better. Because that much better allows us to compete for championships on whatever our chosen battlefield may be. As I said, I fought and I pulled my way through the helicopter as it sank, looking for a way to exit from it. And then I started to swim. but only when I started to swim did I feel true fear. I still get scared thinking about that moment when I first started to swim. Because the Pacific Ocean is a dark body of water, and my teammates and I, we were deep down in it. And although the helicopter blades had shorn off when the helicopter hit the water, the helicopter engines are still turning, causing cavitation, causing bubbles to surround us. We're still wearing all of our gear and equipment. And I don't care how physically or mentally tough we may think we are, none of us can hold our breath indefinitely. If we were to try to do it here this morning, at some point, our bodies would naturally gasp for air, and oxygen would go rushing into our lungs. Except if you're 200 feet beneath the ocean surface. Then, when your body gasps for air, salt water goes rushing into your lungs. And because it does, you gag, and then more salt water goes rushing in. That's called drowning. And my teammates and I had been underneath the water for so long looking for a way to exit from that sinking helicopter that by the time that we started to swim, we were all drowning. Our worlds were shutting down on us. We're deep down in a dark body of water, bubbles to surround us. We're still wearing 50 to 75 pounds of gear, weapons, equipment, and ammunition. And I still get scared thinking about that moment when I first started to swim, because I can still remember thinking to myself when I first started to swim that I hope I'm swimming in the right direction. Making things more challenging for me at the time was that when the helicopter had hit the water, it had hit it with such violence that I had compound fractured my leg. So when I swam in a direction that I hoped was the surface, still wearing 50 to 75 pounds of gear, weapons, equipment, and ammunition, while drowning, I did so using only my arms because I had a bone sticking out of my leg. Well, a few feet beneath the ocean surface, I could see sunlight filtering down into the ocean. In a few moments after that, I was on the ocean surface. In a few moments after that, a safety boat picked me up and I survived that particular day. Unfortunately, 6 of my 10 teammates did not. Well, within 1 month's time, we had 6 new teammates join our team and we deployed to the Persian Gulf. But while we were there, I decided that I would set up a college scholarship fund for the children of my deceased teammates so that should they choose to go to college one day, they would have the financial ability to do so. And then I had to figure out how I was going to raise money for that college scholarship fund. And the way that I decided that I would raise money for that college scholarship fund would be by competing in the world's longest endurance events, climbing the world's tallest mountains, things that I already enjoyed doing, but now I figured I could do them for a bit more selfless purposes. So from Kuwait City, Kuwait, I signed up for Ironman California. The Ironman is a triathlon, a swim, a bike, and a run. It's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike ride, and then a marathon. One right after the other, no stopping, you hope. Well, my teammates and I, we had a successful deployment to the Persian Gulf, and when we came home, I did compete at Ironman California. But about a month before I did so, ESPN contacted me and asked me if they could follow me through that race as a human interest story. Because just like all of us as athletes are going to video either ourselves practicing or playing or our opponent, but we're going to watch that video as a means of getting better. Well, we would videotape everything we did as well in special operations. But on that particular day, we videotaped the actual helicopter crash that we were all involved in. And now it's over a year later, so all the major news networks have this video: ABC, NBC, ESPN. So ESPN follows me through that race. 3 months later, NBC Sports follows me through Ironman Hawaii, which is the World Championships on the Big Island of Hawaii. Now, since then till today, I've competed and completed 8 Ironman triathlons. I've adventure raced from one side of the Kalahari Desert in South Africa to the other, from the Pacific Ocean across Costa Rica to the Caribbean. I've run across the state of Alaska. I've summited 5 of the 7 summits, the tallest peaks on each of the 7 continents. A few years ago, I stood on the summit of Mount Everest for 6 minutes. Those are things that I've done. Let me briefly tell you who I am right now in this moment. I'm the husband to my wife. I'm father to 2 children, an 8-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. My wife and I were adopting our 3rd child, a little boy, in 3 weeks. I run a company that has 12 full-time employees, teammates, and we have a really nice house with a big mortgage payment. And we have $0 of revenue coming in. That's who I am. My teammates at the program and I, we share very similar personal experiences in life. And we have and share the same professional experiences working with more than 160 collegiate and professional athletic teams and corporations annually. And what we know, not what we believe, what we know is that talent allows us to do well in life. But making a commitment to getting this much better. Every single morning that we wake up, this much better allows us to compete for championships on any battlefield and at any time. The way we get that much better is very simple. Make a commitment. Make a commitment to be great teammates and great team leaders. That's it. The way we get that much better is by making a commitment to be a great teammate and a great team leader. That is it. Why? Because individual talent, individuals can win games. Great teams compete for championships on any battlefield and at any time. And those great teams are comprised of 2 people, great teammates and great team leaders. And we fill both of those roles. Right now, during this current environment, is when it is mission critical for us to do so. It's important always. It's mission critical right now. Let's discuss the standards that great teammates and great team leaders consistently meet and exceed. Before I do so, let me just make sure that we understand the vernacular that I'm using, the vocabulary that I'm using. Great teammates and great team leaders consistently meet and exceed, each consistently meet and exceed 2 standards. For the people on this call, Coach Anastos, he sent me a list of the participants. I have no doubt that all of us have heard the term or used the term kids these days. To make you aware, you will never hear me use that term derogatorily. You've never heard any of my teammates or will ever hear any of my program teammates use it in that manner either. Let me share just one story of why you never will. We have 1,000, my teammates and I. My teammates, all of whom who have served in the U.S., British, or Israeli military in combat roles. We have 1,000 of these stories. Let me share just one with you. From Corey Ross, the president of the program corporate. Then Captain Corey Ross was in eastern Afghanistan when his vehicular patrol was caught in an enemy ambush. Corey and his teammates in their vehicle had the misfortune to take a direct hit with an RPG, a rocket-propelled grenade. A rocket-propelled grenade is an area fire weapon. If I stand on one end of the rink and I fire it at the other goal, it might blow up somewhere on the other side of the face-off X. It might. Corey and his teammates, they had the misfortune of taking a direct hit. The warrior next to Corey was blown up. Every other member of Corey's team was knocked unconscious and suffered massive injuries, except for one person, the driver. The driver, he had a 6-inch piece of metal shrapnel come up and stick through his shoulder, and he started to bleed to death, but he wasn't knocked unconscious. And the driver, rather than tend to his own major life-threatening wound, he alone returned fire on the enemy and continued to drive the vehicle outside of the kill zone, and in the process saved the life of every other member of that team. The driver, he was 19 years old. That's just one story of why you'll never hear myself or any of my teammates at the program ever talk about the kids these days. The kids these days, not all, but most, many, are warriors. The kids these days are no different than they were when we were the kids these days, when our grandparents were the kids these days. They're no different. Who's different? We're different. Parents are different. Coaches are different. Teachers are different. Business leaders are different. How? We all give kids of this generation lots of goals. Get A's, finish first, be a leader. We've got to win the face-off battle. We got to make sure that we're getting to all the loose pucks. We have certain revenue goals, certain profit margin goals, and that's fine. But every team has goals. World-class teams, families, athletic teams, schools, businesses have goals and standards. Goals are achievement-based. Standards are behavior-based. Goals are what we want to achieve. Standards are how we are expected to behave while accomplishing those goals. Every team has goals. World-class teams have goals and standards. Great teammates consistently meet and exceed 2 standards. Number 1, they set the example in everything that they do. On and off the ice, in the classroom and out, at work and out of work. Most importantly, when nobody's watching. Great teammates consistently meet and exceed 2 standards. Number 1, they set the example in everything that they do. And then great teammates hold their teammates accountable to achieving those same high standards. That's it. Number 1, they set the example in everything that they do. Number 2, they hold their teammates accountable to achieving those same high standards, and they help them to do so. That's challenging, though. It's challenging for us to hold our teammates accountable. All of us. It is challenging to do so. Why? There's 100 different reasons. Number one, I'd share with you, remember, accountability need not be negative. Yes, if our teammates are falling short, yes, hold them accountable. Much more often, though, our teammates will meet and exceed the standards. And when they do, we must hold them accountable then as well. There should be a benefit. We must recognize them doing so as well. Second, though, why it's so challenging for us to hold our teammates accountable is all of us. We all want to be well liked. It's a human condition. It's a human need. We all want to be well liked. We all want to be good friends to each other. And that's great. It's great. We should be. The only problem is when being good friends to each other becomes more important than being great teammates for each other. It's uncomfortable for all of us to hold our teammates accountable. By doing so, what we're signaling to our teammates is them becoming the best version of themselves is more important to us than our own feelings of discomfort that we may feel while challenging them to do so. Show me a team that holds each other accountable. I'll show you a team that truly cares about each other, or not. If you remember nothing else from our conversation here this morning, please remember this one thing. We go to the movies with good friends. We go to battle with great teammates. We need them now more than ever. Great teammates who set the example in everything that they do, and then hold their teammates accountable to achieving those same high standards and help them to do so. Great teammates consistently meet and exceed two standards. Great team leaders consistently meet and exceed two standards. Number one, they accomplish the mission. They accomplish the mission. Standards do not change based on the adversity that we may or may not be faced. Standards are standards. And the first standard a leader is held is accomplish the mission. Ensure our team accomplishes the mission. Do everything honorably, with integrity, transparently, but do everything we can to ensure that our team can accomplish the mission. Often that can be very difficult. Very challenging, very unpopular. That's why being the leader can be very lonely at times. Again, we need them now more than ever. Leaders who, number one, accomplish the mission, they ensure their team accomplishes the mission. Number two, we take care of our teammates. That's it. Accomplish the mission and take care of our teammates. How do we take care of each other? There are 1,000 different ways that we do so. 1,000. Do it this one way. Make every decision that we ever make. Make every decision that we ever make thinking about what is in the best interest of the team first. Make every decision thinking about what is in the best interest of the team first. Again, not the individual, with the team's best interest at heart first. Again, those two standards that great team leaders consistently meet and exceed are very challenging. Everybody's a hero when it's 70 degrees and sunny out. Everybody is. Everybody is a hero when it's 70 degrees and sunny out. Unfortunately, that's not when we need them. We need great teammates and great team leaders when it's not. Right now. It's always good to be great teammates and great team leaders. It's always helpful. Right now is when it's mission critical. Great teammates who set the example, who continue to set the example regardless of the adversity that we are now faced, that you may be facing as an individual. And my teammates and I at the program, I know we are faced with adversity. The standards are the standards. Great teammates first set the example in everything that they do, and then they hold their teammates accountable to achieving those same high standards, and they help them to do so. Great team leaders ensure that their team accomplishes the mission, number one. Number two, they take care of their teammates. How do we take care of our teammates? By making every decision we ever make, thinking about what is in the best interest of the team first. Whether we do so or not, whether we are great teammates and great team leaders or not, that has nothing to do with how much talent we all possess. All it has to do with is the choice we must make every morning that we wake up. I appreciate and I thank God that none of you will ever be on the back of a sinking helicopter, wearing 50 to 75 pounds of gear, weapons, equipment, and ammunition, drowning with a bone sticking out of your leg. I appreciate and thank God that you will never actually be in the back of that sinking helicopter. But we all know that there will come a time in our life that we're going to feel like we are. And if we can make a commitment to being great teammates and great team leaders, yes, to, but more importantly, for each other. And we are fortunate enough to surround ourselves with others who make that same choice to be great teammates and great team leaders. Then in those moments, in this moment, we'll swim to the surface. Again, whether we do so or not has nothing to do with how much talent we all possess. All it has to do with is the choice we make every morning that we wake up. For myself and all of my teammates at the program, we hope you make the right choice. I challenge you to do so. Thank you so much. Coach Anastos.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Eric. Okay, everybody, now's an opportunity to open the floor and ask questions. And so we have about 20 minutes or so to do that, 25 minutes. And would like to make the conversation as robust as possible. So regardless of whether you're a staff member, a coach in one of our teams, a guest that's joining us from wherever you are, you're all welcome to ask questions. So what I'd like to do is I think you can go to the chat area and you can raise your hand and I can leaf through and call on you and just identify yourself when I call on you and fire away. So who's going to lead us off here? We're going to start with Michelle.
Hi, Eric.
Michelle.
I really connected to a lot of what you're saying in terms of how you persevered, especially in everything that you went through. And I think it was kind of overcoming fear, which I think is really what we're facing today, is fear. So you were talking about how to inspire your teammates. So my question is, what we are dealing with right now is a very large team of all of our customers. So how do we inspire all of those people that we don't necessarily have those intimate relationships with like you would on a team?
Michelle, thanks so much for asking that question, because and it's a very astute question. It's a smart question and an emotionally intelligent one, for what it's worth, Michelle. And the last words that you used in it were key. It's answering your own question, which is, all of us. I said it earlier. I've got fear right now. Anybody who's a husband, a father, a mother, people are depending on you. Even if you're not, we have financial payments we have to worry about. We've got to live. Live. It is a time of great fear. And in those moments, we must be great teammates and great team leaders to and for each other. What is something that we can do, though, specifically in answering your question, that great teammates and great team leaders do? Okay, I discussed who great teammates and great team leaders are. Let me explain one thing, that there are many people during this time. Let me be clear, because I don't want to sound crass or that I somehow am unaware of it. There are many people right now, through no fault of their own, there's a real crisis going on. Through no fault of their own, through nothing they could do, they're in a crisis right now. They don't control that. We don't control the fact that I've got $0 of revenue coming in. There's not much I can do at this point. However, as you said, it's about relationships. See, in times of adversity, okay, I'm not making any revenue right now. That's not an excuse for why I can't develop relationships. During this time, I can prove. And that's why we look, and we've chosen to make this time a time of opportunity. We just are going to have the mindset that it's going to be a time of opportunity for us. How? Oh, not revenue-wise. No. It's not a time of revenue for us. It's still a time of opportunity. How? We are doing everything. Massive outreach to everyone. To everyone. Let's start on our own team, Michelle. First and foremost, let's make sure that we're not, I love the fact that we do group Zoom meetings or Microsoft team meetings. Great. Do not let them take the place of individual meetings, of individual connection. It's not group or individual meetings. We should be doing massive group and individual meetings amongst each other on our own personal teams, to include our families, to include our own companies. It's also a wonderful opportunity for us to develop those relationships with clients, with prospects. I mean, everybody's a hero when you're paying me money to provide a service to you. This is a great opportunity for us to prove just how great a teammates and great a team leaders we are for you, because we're not making any money. What do we have to do specifically to do those? What do we have to do specifically to develop relationships, Michelle? We must, mission critical, be able to effectively communicate. Now, what does that mean specifically? Again, I didn't speak. I said effectively communicate. Remember that effective communication, there's two parts of it. There's speaking and there's listening. Of the two, in times of crisis, the second, the latter, listening, is a much more critical skill than the former. We've got to remember that. We think, well, what am I going to call that person about? I mean, this person on my team, they may just have gotten furloughed. They may just have gotten laid off. What am I supposed to say to them? That's a mistake. Because in times of crisis, What our teammates need is not people saying things to them. What they need is people listening to them. As we describe it, Michelle, make a commitment to listen to understand, not to respond. Believe me, Michelle, my wife, who's upstairs in our house right now, she just got a nervous twitch when I said that, and she has no idea why, because I've got to work on that skill more than anybody as her teammate. But the better job that we can do of calling people, reaching out to people, we will develop deeper relationships with people by listening, interacting with them, but listening to understand. On the phone, when we're reaching out to people, put this away when you're reaching out to them. Not next to you, not upside down. Shut your phone off, put it away, and just be present for the person. When they're talking to you, nod when you're supposed to nod. Acknowledge when they've said something. Silence. Don't feel the need to fill the void. During those times of silence, when our teammate gets done talking, use that period of silence to then think about your empathetic response to that person. Not provide solutions to them in a time when none of us know what the solution is going to be. Instead, provide an empathetic response that shows that you've been listening to them and that you understand what they've said to you. The better job we can do with that, the deeper relationships we will develop during this time, and that will make sure that this ends up in the long term being a time of great opportunity and not just a time of great crisis. Thank you for that. It's critical.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, for those of you who don't know, it's my understanding, I'm sorry I didn't give you this direction, but if you click on the participants at the bottom of your screen and you scroll down to the bottom, I understand that's where you can raise your hand for a question. Okay, so we've got a couple here. Jeff Mitchell.
Hey, Eric. Hey, thanks for your service, first off.
Thanks, Jeff.
Quick question. You know, motivation is one thing that I guess I have a question is what you were doing. Motivation is life and death. You know, trying to get, I guess, this time of crisis that we're in right now, how do you motivate staff that, you know, everybody's in a different financial status and stuff like that? How do you motivate someone to want to come back? How do you motivate someone to, you know, want to be part of the team?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. The short answer is we don't. We don't. Let me be clear here. Now, we don't motivate people. I get it. Like, Jeff, I mean, I'm billed as a motivational speaker throughout North America, right? I traveled throughout North America giving motivational speeches. I hate that term. I hate it because none of us can motivate somebody. By definition, motivation is an internal desire or drive. Either you have motivation or you don't. What we can do as leaders is inspire. A little bit getting back to Michelle's earlier question, how can we inspire people who are, let's say, they have just been furloughed? The last thing, let me say what we shouldn't do. The last thing we should do is call them and say, hey, it's going to be all right. You can do this, you can do that, we can do this, you can do that. No, wrong answer. We don't know. We don't have solutions right now. We don't accept it. We don't know what we can do next week or the week after or the week after that. What we know is what we did yesterday. We can share that with everybody, always. Every day we can share with them. This is what I did. First of all, as I said before, start with listening to understanding. Just call people and listen to understand. Let them know that you care about them. Jeff, the reason why in the military, guys will run and charge a machine gun nest. You always hear that example. Do you know how many guys have been told to charge that machine gun nest and they look at their commanding officer like, he's a freaking moron, that I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. The reason why guys will is if the person who's told them you've got to go, they trust that person implicitly. They trust him because they know that that person, although he may have made very unpopular decisions, he's made those unpopular decisions because he always has the team's best interest at heart first, not his own. That he truly cares about his team, all the members on the team, even way it may be an incredible ask that he's asking that individual to go and do what they have to do. If we can show that, not just talk about it, communicate it with our words, and most importantly, with our actions, we prove that we truly care about that person and this team. Then that person will go and charge the machine gun nest. Again, this is a great opportunity for us to show just how much we do care about people, even if we've had to make some very, very unpopular and tough decisions where they as an individual have been impacted, negatively impacted from it. The way we do that is use this as an opportunity to prove how much you care. Number one, listen to understand. Number two, if you are at that point where now at the conversation you are speaking, don't provide solutions to people. Just simply tell them, look, this is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm doing today. That's it. That's what I know. And by the way, if you don't know something, Jeff, that is information. People need to know it. Guys, I don't know when we're going to be rehiring people. I don't know this. I can tell you this. This is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm doing today. As a company, this is what we did yesterday. This is what we're trying to do today. In the future, this is what we're thinking about doing as we move forward, but realize all of that could change. Open, honest, transparent communication. What do I know? 3 questions we must ask ourselves as leaders every single day. What do I know? Who else needs to know it? Have I told them? That should be a drumbeat every single moment of the day. What do I know? Douche. Who else needs to know it? Douche. Have I told them? Douche. And I don't know anything. That is information. That is how we help to keep people engaged, but not motivated, Jeff.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer, you're up next.
Like Jeff, thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm curious on the business side of things with your company, the program, if you can give an example or two of how you've held teammates accountable.
So thanks for that question. Jennifer, we have a number of people that we hire and I make a mistake and they don't share our culture. We have a value-based culture system. It's based on the values of being selfless, tough, and disciplined. Those are our values as an organization. I'm not saying they're right for other organizations. They're right for us. We have a value-based culture. We make mistakes on hiring. You don't really know somebody until they get to be part of your team. And if they don't share our culture, well, we have to let those people go. After trying to help them embody our culture. But at some point, if they don't, we've got to let them go. Now, a number of people, they just choose to leave and have chosen to leave the program, And there's a number of reasons why, me being the main fault, Jennifer. But if me is not the reason why, the second biggest reason, Jennifer, is our culture of accountability that's systemic in our organization. And what do I mean by that? How do we make a culture of accountability systemic? because the real challenge with accountability is when it becomes too personal, okay? Too personal. When it's one person talking to one other person and it's, well, I think this, well, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. And that becomes very personal. Instead, we just try to make that a culture of accountability systemic within our organization. What do I mean by that? I mean that standard for us. When we work with organizations, we typically will do a keynote address by myself or one of our lead instructors, one of my teammates at the program. Then we'll do an experiential training exercise where we teach people how to be better teammates and better team leaders. But then during this experiential training, we give them an opportunity to develop those skills, which is key. And then we'll do a full debrief. Okay, that's a typical process. During that, it's usually for corporations, athletic teams, it's always 2 days, 99% of the time. For corporations, let's say it's a day of training. Well, for us at the program, it's really at least 3 days of very intense, long days to provide 1 day of training. When that training ends, the first thing we do as a company is we all go and work out together. We just go share adversity with each other. Number one. There are times, though, when we're unable to do so. If we're unable to do so, then when the training ends, then the first thing that we would do is we go eat with each other. We take a shower and we'll go have dinner. And then we debrief it. And the reason why we don't do it right at the end of the event is all of us, Jennifer, are very passionate about what we do and who we do it with, our teammates. We truly do care about what we do and who we do it with. And if we start going over, hey, this is what I did well, this is what you need to do better, people are too emotionally charged right after the event. So we've just made it standard that, look, the event ends. If we get to work out together, great. If we don't, then we're going to at least shower and go out to eat dinner with each other. Then we're going to debrief it when we've all calmed down a little bit. We're not so emotionally charged. And then when we start that debrief or after action, I start, if I'm involved, and I say, guys, this is what I did well. This is what I need to do better. Not what I did wrong, just this is what I need to do better. I did these things which made this event great. These are the things I feel I need to do next time to make it even better. And then everybody who was there at the event with me, they provide that same feedback to me. Cap, I really like that you did this. That was powerful. It was powerful. Cap, I love the fact that you never ask us to do something you're not willing to do yourself. Hey, it's helpful when you're out there filling sandbags with us. It's nice to see it. And then, look, Eric, if you could address this, I didn't like the way you said this. It got kind of confusing. I think if we change that, I don't have an answer for you, but I feel like if you just work on this, it'll make the next event better. Everybody does it. And by the way, see, if you don't give me feedback on what I did well and what I need to do better, then you're just not going to remain a member of our team very long, because we don't care about picking out fault or mistakes. We just care about getting better. And if you're not helping us get better, I need to find somebody else who can. And my teammates at the program share that same feedback with that individual. The first time, maybe we just talk to you. You do it a second and a third time, we're going to start to have a conversation of, you're not making us better here. So I don't know if this is going to work. And then after I go, Jennifer, every single member of my team has that same evaluation. They say what they think they did well. They then say what they think they need to do better to make us better the next time we do it. By having it systemized, the truth is, Jennifer, a number of people have come to work with the program and then left because they just can't take that. It's nice to say constant self and team improvement. A lot of people don't really want it. They can't handle it. At the program, it's just a part of who we are. It's part of our culture, and that's the way that we handle it. That would be one way.
Thank you. That's very interesting.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Okay, next up, we've got a couple minutes left in our time here, Eric. We'll take Lyle's question.
Hey, Eric, thank you for doing this today.
Yeah, thank you.
You mentioned standards never change. And I guess the question I have is, as times change and as situations change, what's the most effective way to consistently communicate standards or behavior that doesn't change?
Yeah, Lyle, correct? Not Kyle,
Yep.
Lyle. Yeah,
Yep.
Lyle. Thank you for that. A couple of things here. First of all, what we teach, now we provide an executive leadership clinic that lasts a day, and it's 4 to 5 hours just on creating and sustaining a world-class culture. Okay. And in that 4 to 5 hour presentation, what we discuss is core values, how we determine them, how we define our core values, and then what are our goals and standards that reinforce those core values on a daily basis. Because we can say, as an example, I'll stay with the program here, Lyle, we can say that we're selfless, tough, and disciplined. It doesn't make us selfless, tough, and disciplined. We can get shirts, t-shirts that say selfless on them. It doesn't make us selfless. It means we just spent $12 on a shirt and we put selfless on it. What does prove that we're selfless for each other is daily meeting and exceeding standards that reinforce our selflessness. Like at the program, before you leave work, you check with every other member of the team if they need help finishing their work. Now, what we discuss in these long, very intense sessions of creating and sustaining a world-class culture is this. We believe that the leader of the organization, or at the very least, the leader in the top executive team, the boardroom, the school president and his or her direct reports, the head coach, the CEO, they determine the core values of the organization. 3, maybe 4. The executive team together will help define those help define those core values for that organization, Lyle, meaning it's selfless. Yeah, but see, I have a certain picture of what a selfless person does. It doesn't mean that that's the program's definition of selfless. Let's get together and determine what it means to be program selfless. I think it's key also to determining how we define selfless for Team Kapitulik. I digress. The point is, the executive team determines that. What we challenge head coaches, coaching staffs, business leaders about goals and standards is discuss with your best people in your organization the goals and standards that they want. Let them decide the goals and standards, because by having them determine what our goals and what our standards should be, and of course you have to guide that discussion, but ultimately they determine what their goals and standards are, what they want to achieve as an organization, and what their behaviors are that are going to reinforce your core values. That provides them ownership of the culture. It's the head person's culture, but the team then owns the culture. They have ownership of it by having to determine goals and standards. With that said, and I really appreciate the question, and I appreciate you holding me accountable. Let me be clear. When I say we don't change the standards, goals, I would change my goals right now if you haven't already, Lyle. For your own team, I would change them right now. There's a reason why throughout North America, I mean, we've been doing this now for 3 weeks, there are salespeople who are clinically depressed. because in January, they had certain goals that either they set for themselves or their organization put on them. Now, those goals, it's a pipe dream if you think you're going to sell what you thought you were going to sell back in January. A pipe dream for most organizations, okay? Why is that? Because our ability to accomplish goals, we forget our ego. We forget that in the accomplishment of our goals, the environment does have a vote. Meaning, Kyle, I did summit Mount Everest. There were 2 other mountains, 8,000 meter peak mountains over 26,500 feet. I did not get to the summit 2 that I tried to climb. Why? Because we had bad weather. In the long term, yes, our own actions will ultimately determine our success or failure in accomplishing those goals in the long term. But in the short term, as it gets more short term, the environment has a bigger and bigger, more drastic impact on our ability to accomplish those goals. If a bad enough storm blows in on Mount Everest, I'm not summiting it on that trip. I'm not. Well, we've got a bad storm that blew in. So instead, let's shift our focus, just change our goals from revenue to possibly, as I suggest constantly, to developing relationships. How many Zoom calls are we doing with our internal team? How many Zoom calls are we doing with current clients? How many Zoom calls are we doing with prospects? How many Zoom calls are we doing with people who turned us down? How much are we doing of that? Make those our goals. Develop relationships. It's a wonderful opportunity. And how do we do it? Again, as I said, and I'm going to keep beating the drum, call them and listen to understand. That's goals. Let's talk about standards, because standards are behavior-based. It's choices we make. When do we change? I said standards don't change. I lied to you, because we want to look at standards. The standards for being great teammates and great team leaders, those do not change. But as we discuss standards and how they reinforce core values, well, our goals, goal accomplishment, what we achieve, that should be a byproduct of us daily meeting our standards. So yes, have goals, but they end up just being a byproduct of us behaving in a certain manner every single day. If we change our goals, then we should at the very least look at what our standards are, at least look at them to make sure that if we change our goals, these standards are still going to help us ensure that those goals are a byproduct of us behaving in certain ways. Typically, they already do, okay, typically. But as far as standards are concerned, when we think of them, think of standards as gateway standards. We have certain standards. They're minimum standards of what we need to do to help us accomplish our current goals. If our goals change, or if these minimum standards become an expectation, they're no longer something that we're trying to do every single day. We're trying to make the right choice. They just become an expectation. When a standard becomes an expectation, then we might think about just increasing the standards. So we look at standards as being gateway standards. I hope that answers your question, Lyle.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, listen, in respect of your time cap, it's 12:06. We'll end right here. For those of you who've got your hand up for a question, I apologize, we won't get to it, but I want to thank everybody for your time today. Great presentation, Cap. Thanks for your time in particular, and keep weathering the storm. Hopefully to all of you on the call, and certainly to you, Cap, you and your family, stay safe and good health.
Coach Anastos, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with your own internal teammates and the other members that are on the call this morning. It's a great privilege for me to have the opportunity to do so. With that said, Coach, if there are additional questions before you end the call, if you want to, or here in the future, if people would like, they could email you what their question was going to be. Coach, forward those questions on to me. I'll record a recording of my answer to them, and I'll send you a video so that you can then share it with those individuals so they make sure that their questions were answered.
Well,
they
Cap,
would like.
would you, for the sake of your time, would you prefer just to do it, to stay on the line right now and take those questions? Or would you prefer to do it in a recording?
No, I'd rather do them right now. If your team would rather do it, Coach, that would be easier. I appreciate it, but no, I'm happy to do it. And if people need to leave, you know, drop off. I mean, I understand people have schedules.
Yeah, that's great. And then we'll do that because virtually everybody is still on the call. So I know there were two questions. We had Tom and Eric were in the can there. So Tom, I'm going to start with you. Tom Z.
Thanks, Eric, for your time and service and helping us set this up. We as a company employ a lot of young adults, high school age, college age staff. And I've listened to some of podcasts of yours. A couple years ago, you mentioned parents who prepare the path over than above preparing the child. And we deal with that a lot. It's more a comment. Now, today you mentioned, kids these days, we should do away with that phrase. So I'm prepared to erase that from any of my mantras. Can you give us some advice as far as I think that behavior is kind of unavoidable I don't want to say kids these days, but what are some best practices to help us lead those staff into changing that behavior and preparing them for the real world?
I think, Tom, here's the thing that I would suggest is instead of kids these days, just substitute kids for parents. Just say parents these days, because our children are a byproduct of our upbringing. I mean, if your child is selfish, chances are they've being that our behavior, we model our behavior over the people that we're surrounded with most. And being that our value system is generally set by the age of 9 and definitely set by the age of 12. That's not me that says that. That's science and psychology and human physiology, all this other stuff that teaches us that. Up to about the age of 9, the people that you surround yourself most with are your parents. So if you see a selfish kid, chances are he or she is modeling their behavior off their parents. Now the challenge is, Tom, when they then are in high school or in college and you're coaching them, or they're out of college and you're employing them, their value system is set. So because of that, the thing that we always highlight to business leaders is, just like with coaches, and what I was talking about earlier, is determine what your core values are and how you define those core values. And then you can look at a resume in about 5 seconds and know, does this person have enough talent to be part of our team, whatever your team is? Mm-hmm. So instead, spend all of your time trying to figure out, does this person embody our core values? Because if they don't, can we change them? No, we can't. Now look, once every 15 years we can, and we hold on to that example of somebody who changed over the next 14 years. As leaders, we can develop people. We don't change them. We don't change them. Make sure that we have determined our core values, how we define them. Tell not only yourself, I don't have very much to do, Tom, with the hiring at the program anymore. Mm-hmm. I have all of my team. I said we have 12 full-time members of our team. All 12 people interview somebody. I asked them, they're all grown adults. I asked them not to talk to each other about somebody they interview, so we don't start to get group think. Please just interview them and then share with me, yay or nay. Are they selfless, tough, and disciplined, or aren't they, in your opinion? If somebody goes 11-1, you don't get hired. I don't even speak to you. We don't, or I might speak to you to tell you, hey, look, this is our culture. We don't feel it. Maybe we're wrong. but you have to go 12-0. If all 12 of my full-time people say, yes, this person is selfless, tough, and disciplined, Tom, then I talk to them and say, well, I hope you are. Because if you're not, I might fire you on Friday. Like 5 days from now, I might fire you because I know I can't change you. And every day I spend on trying to change somebody from being selfish to a little bit less selfish is time that I could be investing in people who are earning my time every single day. Having that conversation early on in the hiring process with people and saying, look, if you're not, please go home, think about it. If you are, you're going to love work. You're going to love me. We're going to love you. You're going to love your teammates. This is going to be the greatest place you ever work because you're surrounded by people who share your core values. Lions hang out with lions and zebras hang out with zebras. If you don't, this is going to be a bad relationship, and it's going to be a quick relationship too. So go home and think about it. Now, I heard Carol Hutchins. This is going to hurt Coach Anastos being a Spartan, but Coach Hutchins is the head softball coach at the University of Michigan. She's a longtime client, Hall of Fame coach, right? If 900 wins in softball is a big number, Coach Hutchins has double that. I heard Coach Hutchins once talk about this idea, and she said, does that sound harsh to people? Yeah, it does. I appreciate it. It does sound harsh. But if it's so harsh that it makes me lose a recruit, well, maybe she beats me twice a year. If I make a mistake on a recruit, she beats me every day. How true is that, right? Right? How true is that? We all know it. We all know it. It what speaks to if with kids in this generation, if they are growing up in homes, and many are, that have lots of goals, but no standards. And by the way, no standards means standards are behavior-based. If you don't meet a standard, there is a consequence. A lot of kids grow up in homes nowadays. There are no consequences for behaving poorly, okay? So then you get them. That makes having standards as a team or as an organization even that much more important. Let the best people on your team figure out what they are, and then it may help us achieve them better than if it's just what we're saying, you have to be this, you have to do this. Again, it doesn't guarantee success, but not doing it guarantees us failure, Tom.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Next up, we have Gene. Remember to unmute yourself, Gene.
Good afternoon. Thanks for staying on. I'm a firm believer of out of bad comes good. You're a great example of that. What, in your opinion and experience, what good will come out of this pandemic?
Gene, I don't know. I don't know. What I do know is Gene, I don't, this is a very, personal, emotional, people have a visceral response to the pandemic. Let me just share with you my personal beliefs. These aren't the program beliefs. And again, we are all a sum of our experiences, and those experiences shape our belief system and how we should deal with everyday life, to include good times and bad. Me personally, as we learn more about the pandemic, we can't stay rooted in choices that we made early, that when we didn't know anything about it, what our response, because we don't control the virus, but our response to it, we do. And we made certain choices about our response to the virus early on when we had really no information. And good, you have to, as a leader, you have to make a decision. So we made certain, but as new information comes in about the virus, we can't put our head in the sand about it. We have to recognize this new information and make edits to decisions we made early on. That's just good leadership. Staying rooted in decisions that we made a month ago when we have more information that we can make a better decision about it on, that's a failure in leadership. I feel personally, as we're seeing more information come out about this virus, the death rate of it appears, I don't know for sure, it appears that the overall death rate of it will ultimately end up being very close to the flu. Now, we don't have a vaccine and the virus spreads a lot. So we have to watch out, I feel, for overloading our hospitals. But nationally, our hospitals are not overloaded. In certain areas, horribly so. In certain areas, horribly so. We have to be able to control our response because we have to get people back to work. All the media is taking into account is deaths. Every business does a cost benefit analysis though. If all we're doing is looking at the cost, but not the benefit, it is not a cost benefit analysis. I'm sorry, if all we're doing is looking at the benefit and not the cost of our decision, it's not a true analysis. When we have what economists look like, 34% unemployment in our country by June, the Great Depression had 23. We fail to take in the cost of additional suicides, the additional domestic abuse that occurs, the long-term impact, PTSD that occurs on not only adults, but more importantly, and most importantly to me, children. That the idea of go inside your house and just stay inside your house, to me, I feel like what that creates is a victim's mentality of you just got to stay there. For me, I feel like if we can, during this time, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be right now, but during this time, a good of it that could happen, my family and I last night, we discussed at the dinner table, we said, hey guys, to our children and to us, hey, tell me one thing that's good that's come up of this pandemic. Since the quarantine started, tell me one good thing that's happened because of it. And we just went around as a family and discussed one good thing that's come of it. Do it as a family, do it as a company. You will see that if we've made the right choice with all of the crisis that the pandemic and our response to the pandemic has caused, we will find in our own personal lives on an individual basis good that has come of it. In my family, personally, as I've said in this conversation, the number one far and away leader of it is certain relationships that we've developed. My son, his best buddy, his dad, he and I have a tighter relationship now because of it. That was mine. And by the way, so you know, we said, hey, look, you can't use our family as your one thing, all right? My wife and I are smart enough because we know that if we say anything but each other, the other person's going to be really upset at the other person. So that was off the table, okay? So we said, look, you can't use family. It has to be something else that's come of it. I suggest do it as a family. I suggest do it as a company. All of us, it will be different. I just believe, based on the answers I heard last night from my family, the good that's going to come of it, if we choose to make it so, will be deeper relationships that we now have that we would not have had before, Gene, because when we call somebody, they're not out on hot dates right now. They're going to pick up the phone. What about you, Gene? I'd like to ask you, what's one thing, what do you think could be a benefit that comes from this?
People taking stock in their relationships and preparing more for the future, giving a little deeper thought to the bigger picture.
Agreed. Totally. Agreed. And also I think that I don't think we're doing a great job of it right now because we're you know, Gene, I was on a call yesterday with a major college football team, the coaching staff. And every single position coach, as they came up, they were just talking about their players in their room, okay? The offensive line coach talked about the offensive linemen. There was not a single position coach who didn't mention about a player or more, this is major college football, on their team, that they had to go to compliance to get a special waiver to send that person additional money because that person is buying groceries and trying to support their family that they're now back at home with. So in fact, sending them home, that's the most dangerous place that person can be. Right now, our response to it, I don't think we're taking into account that the fact that in any economic upheaval, socially and economically, the lower the class you are, the greater the upheaval. I think we can do more as an as a company, as a company, but as a country. But it starts personally. It starts at our home to address and help that part of America, and that's what's frustrating to me because I don't think we are with 34% unemployment by the summer. If we do, boy, that taking stock in our fellow American, it could be a great benefit that comes out of this.
Thank you, Gene.
Thanks, Gene. Yeah, nice talking to you, Gene. Good luck.
Okay, next up is Eric Carlson.
Hello, Eric. This is Eric with a K.
All right, not as cool,
your
but
service as well.
That's all right.
We were just talking about your family, and my question's kind of oriented towards that. A lot of us have become teachers to our children, which has been a challenge. So how have you held your children accountable to their schoolwork and in a positive way?
Eric, I appreciate the question. Let me be frank, because trust is the foundation of every relationship, and meaning even our relationship, right? Me with the audience today, with you, Eric. Let me be as in the way we develop trust is how we communicate and how should we communicate, as I said, earlier, honestly, with integrity and great transparency. Let me be all of those things to you. And let me explain to you and the audience, the single greatest thing that I think is an outcome of being a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, Eric. Again, this is just me personally. The single greatest thing about being a graduate of Annapolis is that when people find that out about you, never again, anywhere, does anybody ever ask you, oh, so what was your GPA? That's what I personally think is the single greatest thing about being a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. But if you graduate the Naval Academy with a 2.02 GPA, right, 962nd out of 992 students, and then you find yourself one day in an environment where you and your wife are tasked with teaching your children, even with that 2.02 GPA, if you are fortunate enough to be married to a woman who has a higher one, like Team Kapitulik, she has completely taken over every single course of instruction for our children, except one, Eric. I am the PE teacher. That's what I've been tasked with. That's it. So I'm challenged to give you any suggestions at all about teaching, being that the one class I'm tasked with is the one thing that I'm going to go outside and do today no matter what. With that said, so let me just talk about PE class. To me, and again, right, we're some of our experiences. PE to me is the single most important class Axel can take. Why? Because for all of us, what exercise does, not running the Ironman, no, but what exercise does, consistent exercise. Again, this isn't Eric Kapitulik that believes this. This is what biology teaches us. The more we exercise, that produces mitochondria in cells. Mitochondria are energy-producing cells. The more we exercise, the more energy we have to give to all of the teams of which we are a part, our families and our teachers and our classmates. The more we exercise, my son has more energy to give to those things, number one. Number two, what exercise does. It forces us, and look, I know you all, there's most people on here are athletes or at one point in their life have been, is what exercise does is it makes us breathe harder. So now we have to bring more oxygen. Our pulmonary system makes us breathe harder. It makes us bring more oxygen throughout our body, starting with the vital organs. And the first vital organ is our brain. So if we exercise, not only do we have more energy, we have more oxygen in our brain, and that allows us to stay focused better and makes us mentally more aware of whatever we are doing. So to me, and what I suggest to parents is, man, if you're going to skimp on any class or on any homework, don't let it be PE, because the better job that we can do getting our children just out there to exercise, the better they're going to do when they're sitting down in front of a computer trying to learn something on a computer that is really challenging to learn with a teacher in front of them. That's what I suggest, Eric.
Well, thank you. And in our house, we're kind of the same. My wife's the teacher and the lunch lady, and I'm the principal and the athletic director.
Hey, Eric, I'm going to steal that from you, by the way, because I would probably call my principal would mean I'm in charge. So I don't want to say principal. I'll say this. I'm the dean of students.
Yeah, or disciplinarian, either way.
That's right. That's right, Eric. That's right. Dean of students and athletic director. Those are my two roles.
Good stuff.
That's
okay,
right.
We've got another question here. Kent, you're up. Kent.
Thanks, Tom. And thanks, Eric, for sharing your time with us today.
Yeah.
Can you comment on balancing that culture of accountability with building confidence and getting them beyond their fear of failure?
Sure. I think that I'm sorry, give me 1 second, because I just got to check my schedule. I want to make sure I'm not running into something so I can be totally engaged here. Okay, great. I have about 15 more minutes. Okay, Tom?
Okay.
And then I'm going to run into another meeting. Who was that just asked me the question again? I'm sorry.
Kent.
And Kent, can you please ask me your question again?
Absolutely. So just asking you to comment on balancing the culture of accountability with building the young athletes' confidence and helping some of them that need it, getting beyond that fear of failure.
Sure. Thank you so much for asking it. First of all, I love the questions because, look, first of all, as I said before, Barry Sanders once made a quote that I read, and I thought, he describes my life, and unfortunately. And he had once said, I spent my entire life trying to be the man. Now I'm just trying to be a man. That's pretty reflective of my life. And more than a man, well, along with that would be a husband and a father. Those are my two most important roles that I fill. Okay. One of the things, and again, everybody, you have your children, you're passionate about them. They're who we love more than anything else in life. And I'm not trying to proselytize here or somehow say, do this. I'm just saying this is what we do because this is what's important. Ken, I grew up with parents. I love them. I love them dearly. They're great parents. They provided everything that we needed to be successful in life. I cannot thank them enough for us. That doesn't mean we got everything we wanted. We didn't have the money to have everything we wanted. We had everything we needed. Most importantly, guidance and love. Okay. There are some things, though, that I don't do that my parents did. One of them is my parents were goal-driven. Ken, I would play a high school basketball game. I'd score 25 points. I'd come off the basketball court, and the first thing my dad would say to me is, you missed 5 free throws. Now, that was from a very young age. To this day, Ken, I give speeches in front of groups that can be 5,000 people in size. My mom, she's 86 years old. She'll listen to the recorded version of these things. She'll call me on the phone and say, Eric, your grammar, when you use he or she, it should be and I'm like, Mom, that was to 5,000 people. I had people laughing. I had people crying during it, and she's like, yeah.
But when you use the pronoun they, it should be. Now, Ken, is it helpful? Well, for me, it did happen to help me. It definitely helped drive me. By the same token, it's a fine line because I've had to, as I've grown and hopefully, knock on wood, matured, I've realized that there's a difference between happy and satisfied. And it's okay to be happy about what you did. That doesn't mean you necessarily have to be satisfied, but celebrate the achievements along the way. It doesn't, if it's always just, yeah, 25 points, but you didn't do this. Unless you happen to have a child with a specific mental makeup, I think just by human nature, not the nurture, the nature piece of it, that can drive people down. It can make certain children say, well, I'm not going to try anything because nothing is good enough. Or it might make some children say, well, hey, if getting an A is what's important, I'm going to take the easier course because you say get A's. We have to watch that as parents, first of all, as coaches and as business leaders, as as teachers. That's my feeling about it. So because of that, as an example, my son has never once, I've got an 8-year-old son, my daughter's 3 years old, so she's not in school yet, but my 8-year-old son has never once heard me say, get A's. He's never once heard me say, be a leader. Never once. And that's coming from a guy who runs a leadership company. Why? Well, first of all, I don't know why in American society being a great teammate has somehow become unimportant. If my son goes to play for you, goes to work for you, for Coach Anastos, and you call me up one day and say, Axel, that's my son, Axel's the greatest teammate I've ever coached. My wife and I are going to feel like we did our job. Okay? That's an aside. In any event, every morning that I'm at home, I'm not on the road, I drive Axel into school and I speak to him. I walk him up to his classroom. I give him a kiss. I'm sorry, well, I don't give him a kiss initially. I walk him up to his classroom. I sit down with him and I say, Axel, what do we got to be today? And he says, Daddy, we got to be selfless. And I say, what does it mean to be selfless? And he says, Dad, that means we put the team first. Then what do we got to be? We got to be tough, Daddy. What's it mean to be tough, Axel? It means we do what's right, not what's easy. Third, what do we got to be, Axel? We got to be disciplined, Daddy. What's it mean to be disciplined? That means we do what we say we're going to do. I say, Axel, go have a great day. Realize that doing those things, being those things, that's going to make Daddy proud. No matter what, Axel, no matter what, I'm always going to love you with my whole heart. Then I kiss him and tell him to have a great day. That's what we talk about. We talk about it before school. We talk about it before every single practice he has. When we get done with school, when we get done with practice, I say, how selfless were you? Now, you know what my son's going to want to do? He's going to say, Daddy, did you see that goal I scored? See, what most parents do is the kid ends a game and they go, oh my God, that's a great goal. High-fiving them. Okay, you know what your son or daughter thinks that you value? Them scoring goals. My son, he may go to the Naval Academy or daughter, but I'm saying we're talking about Axel here. He may go to the Naval Academy someday. He may go into the Marines. He might go climb mountains. I don't know. I want him to be happy in what he does, though. If those are things that are going to make him happy, good, go and do them. If not, it's his life. He should go and do the things that are going to make him happy. I don't care about what he does other than I hope that it makes him happy. What I care about is who he is. And as a parent, that's what I'm going to stay focused on. As a coach, as a business leader, stay focused on it. That, I feel, will do more to build his confidence than anything. I've reframed what failure is. Failure's not getting a B. Failure's getting a B if you weren't tough about it, if you weren't disciplined about it. Then it's a failure, but the grade isn't what's important. Heck, I'd rather actually take tough courses his entire life and be a C student than take nothing courses and be an A student. That'll end up having a greater impact on him and his success in his life, I feel, than, well, hey, Daddy, I got A's. We instill confidence by reframing failure, I believe.
Good stuff. Awesome. Thank you, Kent. And thanks for everybody. We still have about 50 people on the call. We started with 70 and it's 12:37. So Cap, thanks for not just doing it, but all the extra time that you're doing or that you gave us. Thanks to all of you who took time to join. We do have one last question before we let you go. And there's only 6 minutes. So don't go over because you got to get on to your next one. So, Lauren, you're going to be the last question of the day. Lauren.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh,
thank you, Eric.
Hi, Lauren. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Lauren.
Hi, Eric. I had a quick question. I just wanted you to talk about what the things that you do to maintain like your mental toughness when under like extreme physical stress. So when you were doing your Ironman, different things in the military, etc.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. I appreciate that. For me, people always talk about physical or mental toughness. To me, it's physically and mentally and emotionally tough. It's just tough, right? Lauren, I talked about giving speeches in front of huge groups like out in Vegas or something like that, in these big convention halls. And usually if it's a huge company or something like that, there's an executive team. And the executive team asks, I'll have dinner with them or something. And there's always a guy, Lauren. And usually, Lauren, when I use the term guy, I mean universal term guy, man, guy, girl type of thing, man, woman type of thing. In this case, no, I mean guy. It's always a dude for some reason, right? On the executive team. They know I climb Mount Everest, right? And some guy always wants to tell me, oh, Eric, yeah, climbing Mount Everest, it's all mental. Lauren, do you know what I hear every time some guy, you know what I want to say every time some guy tells me climbing Mount Everest is all mental? You've obviously never climbed Mount Everest. That's what I want to say, Lauren. Climbing Mount Everest is not all mental. No, it's 98% physical. The 2% mental is what can kill you. And the 100% that's emotional is going to want you to climb the mountain with me or not. In all of our lives, it may not be 98 and 2%, but in all of our lives, we're all on lots of teams, and all those teams require a great amount of energy. So some part of our life is going to be physical, even if our job tends to be very sedentary. Now, let me talk about specifically, so we've got to develop that, our physical, mental, and emotional toughness. Let me just start with, though, to answer your question, let's talk about the cool stuff, right? The things I talk about as a motivational speaker, right? The Ironman and climbing Mount Everest. To me, Lauren, all of us have a different why. Why are we doing this? Starting early on in my life at the Naval Academy, people go to the Naval Academy and during it, they forget why they wanted to go in the first place. And they forget when things get really tough. That's been true about the Naval Academy. That's true in the Marine Corps, in special operations, in the Ironman, in climbing Mount Everest. It gets to a point where you forget your why, or you try to convince yourself that, no, it wasn't that important. Don't. Know what your why is for going to do this. And first of all, if your why is only somehow external, like, well, I want to make so-and-so happy, or I want to prove that I'm something to somebody. Screw those people. What do they matter? I mean, look, one of my core values is selfless. You've got to be selfless to yourself first and foremost if you're going to be selfless to somebody else. If you're going to be, take care of number one. Number one is the most important person. My son the other night, because we're doing so much more on social media, he's 8 years old. He asked me, hey, Daddy, can we go on and see how many likes you had? I said, no, we're not. Because I could care less how many likes I have. Because if I care about how many likes I have, that means I care about how many people think Daddy's a jerk. I could care less about either. I care about what Mom thinks about Daddy. I care about what you think about how much you like Daddy. If your sister is going to hit like on Daddy, that's what I care about. But if your why is an internal, hey, I want to prove to myself that I can do this. I want to see if I'm tough enough to do it. Great. That will carry you through the tough times. but know your why, number one. Number two, we have to stress inoculate ourselves. So if I were to just, there's a reason, right, Lauren, why on January 1st, gyms are packed, on February 2nd, they're empty. It's because people don't inoculate themselves. They go from nothing to, I want to be this overnight. We don't become something overnight in anything that we do. It's a process. It's a lifetime. So we have to stress inoculate ourselves. If you've never worked out before, or it's been 30 years, it should not be, I'm going to work out every single day. It's, I'm going to exercise every day. And if you do it for 5 minutes, be happy about it. It doesn't mean you're satisfied. Be happy. If in the Ironman, you're not a bad person if you don't finish. You might be unhappy about it, but you can try again. Knowing that reframing to yourself what failure is vitally important. And if you were as selfless, tough, and disciplined, at least with Team Kapitulik, if I'm as selfless, tough, and disciplined as I could be and I don't get to the mountaintop, I'm going to be happy. May not be satisfied, but I'm going to be happy. When I'm in those tough moments, I tell myself that, hey, it's okay. It's okay if it doesn't work out today. But are you quitting, or is it things outside of your control? And if it's quitting, well, then that's not tough. So you're not going to be who you say you are. And because I've stress inoculated myself along the way, I've been in other tough situations. I started small and I got bigger and bigger and bigger. And you were tough enough that day and you felt like you do now. So why is today different? We're all the sum of our experiences. The more experiences that we can go and do, the more experiences we can draw from when things get tough, Lauren.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the question, Lauren. And everybody else, thanks for hanging in there all this time. 12:44, we still have 48 people on the call. So Cap, thank you very, very much. I'll be in touch with you. Have a great day, and you made us a little bit better today. Thank you.
Hey, I made my day to spend time with you all. I hope somebody, I hope you took maybe one thing, if possible, from it. But again, Coach, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity. I know this is a challenging time. Make a choice to make it a time of opportunity. We do so by making a commitment to being great teammates and great team leaders. Thanks for allowing me to share the message.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Have a great day, everybody.